So good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to you all. Lovely to see all your faces, or many of your faces, and very many familiar faces, and maybe some new folks here today. It's good to be with you, and I think I feel grateful to come back to our practice, particularly at a time like this, the time we're living through, and come back to community as well, to remember that we're not alone. The events of the last few days, particularly the events of Wednesday here in our area, I have to say, for me, leave me with a heavy heart, and also a lot of uncertainty of how things are going to unfold in the next 10 days, and obviously beyond that as well. And so I feel particularly grateful to have a weekend of practice. We had a day-long retreat yesterday. It was called a day of renewal and hope, and that was very helpful for me, certainly, and I hope for everyone participating, to be able to come back, to come back to our hearts, come back to the present moment, and come out of our thoughts and worries and fears and all of the ways we can get caught up in things. And so I'm very grateful that we are together. We have this time together today. And I think what I'd like to do, I began last week by starting with a meditation, and then sharing a little after that, and going into the movement and another meditation. I would invite you, if you would like to. Pat mentioned the chat box and the chat function. If you would like to now, or kind of any time during our practice, particularly during the talking part of it, if you just like to share, what's present for you, what's as we begin this morning, what are you aware of, what's present in the heart, the mind, the body. In these, particularly these times that we're going through, these times of uncertainty, and some, perhaps of anxiety, fear. Please feel free, if you'd like to, share anything, and that can be, part of our discussions today. But I would like to begin with time for us to actually come home to ourselves. And so I invite you to find a posture that's comfortable, relaxed. We begin by taking our seat. So let your posture be one of ease as much as possible, of relaxation, and a sense of dignity. Think of the archetype of the Buddha sitting under the tree of awakening, and you adopting this posture of openness, receptivity, and the invitation to really to meet whatever's arising in the body and the heart and the mind with acceptance, with kindness, with receptivity. So sitting Let the back be straight, shoulders relaxed. Let the chest be open so you can breathe easily. Hands can be in.
Sorry, Hugh, you need to just briefly unmute. That was my mistake.
Thank you. Thank you. So letting your attention drop down out of the out of our heads, out of the thinking as much as possible, just down into the body. Feel your body. Feel the contact with the surface beneath you. Feel the weight of your body. Connected, the surface beneath you. And check in with your breathing. Just notice how the breath is right now. You might consciously invite some deeper breaths as a way of helping you to arrive and settle. Nice full deep in breath, filling the lungs, filling the chest. And releasing, letting go on the out breath, long, slow out breath, deep out breath. Releasing all of the breath, and then nice deep in breath, filling the lungs. Letting go on the out breath. Breathing in, calming the body. Breathing out, calming the mind. And in your own time, you could let the breath settle back into its natural rhythm. Breathing in, breathing out. Inviting a receptive awareness to whatever's present for you right now. Very helpful resource and practice that we can go to is a smile, to invite a smile. So consciously letting the corners of the eyes and the corners of the mouth come into a smile or a half smile. The smile sends a message, however we're feeling, that we can relax, that we can be at ease, sends a message to the brain and the nervous system. And the more genuine the smile is, the more it relaxes the body and the mind. So if you could think about someone you love, someone who easily makes you feel happy, can help invite the smile. We can come back to the smile. If you notice you feel stressed, see how it is to consciously invite a smile. You might invite the smile down into your heart. You might imagine your heart itself being smiling, expressing that smile, let it come into the body. Inviting a sense of relaxation and ease. You could let the smile be an expression of how you want to meet your experience, the world. Can you meet it with a smile, with the attitude of a smile? You might also take a moment as we begin this, our practice, our time together, to reflect on some things in your life that you feel grateful for. Things that make life easy or more pleasant, safer, more joyful. It could be people, loved ones, friends, conditions or situations, health, or some sense of security or well-being. A whole range of things that we have in our life that we easily take for granted. We have our spiritual practice, our religious practice, nature, animals. Coming back to gratitude, it helps us step out of that focus, that energy of things being wrong, things not having what we think we need, or wanting things to be different. And we can make a shift, we can consciously shift out of that kind of focus, what we don't like or what we think we need, to what we already have. If you can take in appreciation, feelings of appreciation, thankfulness for what you have. And opening to what's present for you right now, with a receptive attitude, a receptive heart, to what's present, what you're experiencing. Notice what bodily feelings you're aware of right now. See if you can make space for whatever is present. pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Might bring awareness to whatever mood or emotions might be present for you right now. Maybe there's a sense of ease, or perhaps there's some heaviness or some sadness. See if you can make space for whatever's here, whatever's present. Letting it come, letting it be, and when it's ready, letting it go. Notice what's present in the mind. Is the mind calm, at ease, or is it more active, more agitated? And see if you can simply notice that too as another arising. A thought comes up, just notice, let it come and go. Choosing not to follow the thoughts, just to be here, to be aware. Inviting the qualities of acceptance and kindness, choosing those as ways of meeting your experience. This moment is like this. Excuse me. This moment is like this. This experience, it's like this. If the mind is relatively calm and relaxed, you could just rest in an open awareness, just observing what's coming and going in the body and the heart and the mind. experiences arising and passing, staying for a while and then passing in this open space of awareness. Or if it's more helpful, you could cultivate a focused awareness, just being aware of breathing in, breathing out, using the breath as a home base, place to rest the attention, come back to when the mind wanders. You can see what's most helpful for you. A more open awareness or a more settled, focused awareness. It may change at different times. It might be more supported by the breath or the body. Other times are more open, the mind like the sky, everything passing through and the sky remains open, receptive. Is it possible to allow whatever wants to be seen and recognized and met with kindness to come into awareness? This from Thich Nhat Hanh, for warmth. I hold my face between my hands. No, I'm not crying. I hold my face in my two hands to keep the loneliness warm. Two hands protecting, two hands nourishing, two hands preventing my soul from leaving me in anger. Opening to and making space for what's present right now with kindness. And if you find the mind got caught up in stories or worries, plans, memories, we can just come back to the breath, come back to the body. Or if you're practicing in a kind of more open awareness, just come back to that open sky. You can see the thought as like a cloud that hides the sun for a time. But then we wake up, we're back into that open awareness. And if something comes up that feels like it's calling for attention, becomes predominant in your awareness, see if you can just let your attention move to that and make space for it. You can really move closely into the experience. If it's a bodily feeling, discomfort or pain, to allow yourself to feel the sensations. Notice the changes, the movement. Allowing whatever's here to come and go in its own time. Meeting it with kindness. Feel the space around it, around the tightness or the pressure or whatever the feeling is. We can also move in the other direction. If something feels challenging, we can open the space, kind of experience it within the wider space of awareness. So rather than focusing in, we step back. It's present, we're aware of it. But there's other things too. It can come and go. Holding it with kindness, with acceptance. And being able to begin again in any moment. A great gift of this practice, of these teachings. We can always begin again. Whatever went before, however long we may have been away, off somewhere, caught up in something. We can begin again, this breath, this moment without judgment, this moment in the heart space where everything that is welcome. Is it possible to hold what's present for you right now and everything around us, all that's going on in this very turbulent time? Can this be held in kindness, in loving kindness, with all its pain and all its contradictions, its uncertainty? And sensing yourself here in community, all of us together. One of the illusions that we get caught up in when we're suffering is that we're alone, that we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. The great gift of community of Sangha is to remember that we're holding it all together. We're not alone. The deepest truth is our togetherness, our connectedness, rather than our isolation. Finished with this poem from Mary Oliver, "When I am among the trees. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily. I'm so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me the trees stir in their leaves and call out, 'Stay a while.' The light flows from their branches, and they call again. 'It's simple,' they say, 'and you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light and to shine.'" To be filled with light and to shine. Taking your time coming back into looking around, opening your eyes, coming back into the group. And I think what we'll do, Emily, if it works for you, we could do some movement and then some sharing and coming together for the final meditation. So thank you, Emily.
Good morning. Take a moment to feel your feet and open up into the space. Just feeling the energy around you of your home. That wonderful, safe, and secure energy. And then slow it down. Come to center. Turn your palms up, feeling as if they have the light. And then gather that energy, gathering it up, reaching up to the sky and the sun, the planets and stars beyond. Cultivate and bring that energy to your heart. And then cultivate the energy here, all of the people, the compassion and kindness, gathering it in, and bring that to your heart. And then cultivate the energy of the earth, that which nourishes us with so much abundance. Bringing that to your heart. Now palms, once again, arms by your side, palms out, and reach up, taking your left wrist in your right hand and inhale up and then tilt over to the right, lengthening out, feeling your hip and the energy that extends out and back to center. Switch wrists. Inhale deeply and stretch up. And exhale, tilt. Holding here, lengthening along that side body. And inhale up. Float your arms down. And then bring them halfway up. Come into cactus pose. And we'll just drop our hands. Rise. Drop. And rise. Think about your elbows and bring those elbows together, gathering the energy into your center line. Bring your hands down to your heart. And with an exhale, turn your palms and go whoosh. Exhale down to your heart. Turn your palms out and down and whoosh. Allow your arms to come down. Clasp your hands behind your back for a gentle back bend. Inhaling, lengthening your elbows and drawing in your shoulder blades. Exhale, release. Inhale, lift up, lengthening, chest to the sky. And release. Inhale, lengthen. And release. Shake it out. Allow your shoulders to move. Move in the other direction. And now last movement, place your hands above your knees. Inhale deeply here and exhale, allow your body to be pulled down. Lowering your head and your shoulders. Upper back, middle back, just reaching down. Surrendering to the earth. And then place your hands above your knees and press on your feet, rising up, curling up. Place your hands at heart center and reach out to the sky. Release to our group and to the earth. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you.
So nice to move.
Yes, thank you. So what I'd like us to do is, if Pat, you can put us into groups, and the invitation is just to reflect, just to share a little about what's alive for you right now, what might be challenging, what might be helpful to you right now. And we'll do it in turns: mindful listening, mindful sharing, mindful listening, and then we'll come back into the full group again. So Pat, if we could do like 12 minutes. So welcome back, and please feel free to share anything that came up for you in the group, or anything that came up for you in the meditation. Today I wanted to focus on, as much as we can, on practice and on sharing together. And I'd love to hear how you're doing, how you're holding all that's going on around us. I mean, the events of Wednesday particularly, I think were incredibly painful for so many people, so many of us. And it certainly hurts my heart that millions and millions of people are being told lies and have bought into those lies, and perhaps unsurprisingly. And out of that comes a lot of, comes violence and comes hatred. And we find ourselves in a very difficult time. Hopefully in very short time, we'll be moving into a new period, but all of everything that was around on Wednesday is not suddenly going away. And so how do we meet that? How do we hold that? And I come back again and again to awareness, and particularly to the practices of the heart, practices of loving kindness and compassion, joy, equanimity, because it's so easy and almost natural to kind of go into separation. Us and them, we're right, they're wrong. Why are they doing these bad things? And as we know, even though however righteous we may feel, I think we know that when we create separation in those ways, there's suffering and there's harm. The divisions keep perpetuating themselves and keep deepening. So, the invitation is to keep coming back to our hearts, coming back to recognizing that the problem, if there's an enemy, it's not an individual or a group of people, it's ignorance, and that is the kind of the polarity that the Buddha's teachings and really speak to, that it's not about good people and bad people. I come back to Alexander Solzhenitsyn, what he said. He had a basis for doing so, living in the under the Soviet Empire, Soviet regime. He said, if only it were all so simple, if only there were evil people somewhere else, insidiously committing evil deeds, and it was simply necessary to separate them from the rest of us and destroy them. But the line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. And who is willing to destroy a piece of his or her own heart? The line between good and evil cuts through each of our hearts. And if we think about it, that we've all made choices in our lives, and certain choices we made, perhaps took us in a good direction. Other choices we might have taken could have taken us in a much more painful direction. And the difference between us and those who we might see as causing harm is really the difference between having access to ways of seeing that lead towards well-being, teachings, practices that I think we can feel grateful for having access to teachings that help us to perhaps see things more clearly, help us to not create divisions, or maybe see when we are creating divisions and kind of step back from that. And I say, I say there but for the grace of God, that there but for fortune, that we may have had the good fortune of finding access to wise teachings that help us untangle ourselves from suffering, but other people, are no different from us fundamentally, but are tangled up in suffering. I mean, and ultimately we're all tangled up in suffering, but it's a question of often a question of degrees of suffering. You're probably familiar with that it's ascribed to a Native American tradition of a grandfather who talking to the grandchild and saying, I have within me two wolves I have inside of me. One is filled with hatred and blame and judgment and anger. He said, I have another one within me that is this wolf is kind and loving and compassionate and friendly and generous. And the grandchild says, which one of these wolves wins out? Which one wins the fight? And the grandfather says, the one that I feed, the one that I feed. And so that question, really our practice is, what are we feeding? Are we feeding hatred? Are we feeding division? Are we feeding righteousness? Or are we feeding understanding, compassion, care, kindness, acceptance, equanimity, these qualities? And it's a question that we can keep coming back to in any moment. What am I feeding? What am I feeding thoughts and mind states and emotions that keep me tangled up in anger or in blame or in judgment or in separation? Without these practices, what we tend to do is we just get caught up in our habitual responses. What we've done often before that seemed to work for us. In some ways, it's given us what we want, or it's protected us, or seemed like it did. And we will, without a practice, without awareness, we will just default to our habit mode. So having a practice of that helps us to remember, in Zen, there's a saying, the most important thing is to remember the most important thing. So what is the most important thing? I think the most important thing or things are to be aware of our experience, to take refuge in life in the present moment, and to keep our heart open, keep our hearts open. So what I'd invite us to do is if anyone would like to share how you're doing, or any question you might have, or just sharing, we could take a few minutes to do that. And I'm checking if anyone would like to share anything, or please feel free, as I said, to share in the chat. How are you doing? How are you holding up under the times that we're living in?
Hugh, this is Julie Cruz, and
yeah, hi, Julie.
I was just sharing in the small group the intergenerational trauma of being descended from people who were murdered by mobs.
Yeah.
And then I think of the people of color in this country that maybe were attacked by mobs themselves, or immigrants from other countries where they live that personally. And I just feel like the burden of holding that trauma when we can't even be together. The isolation just feels much more difficult
right now.
With just all of this collective pain and trauma, and we're isolated.
Yeah,
and it's like it's really a perfect storm of not being able to dig deep and find the resources within myself to handle this.
How does it
Hard to
feel?
just sit with feeling traumatized. I did that during the meditation, but it didn't shift.
Yeah. How does it help at all to be in community, to share with others, to practice with others, to share in the small group and the large group with others?
It does, but it's just so much harder right now. But it does. Yeah.
No, I definitely hear you.
And I
And
appreciate you creating this space for us, Hugh. I just want to thank you for that.
yeah, thank you, Julie. Yeah, I really appreciate what you shared. It's a hard time. It's such a hard time for so many people in so many ways. You know, those who are, you know, those who've lost loved ones, those who've lost their jobs or their businesses, those who don't know, you know, where the next paycheck is coming from, or whether they'll be, you know, evicted at, you know, the end of the month or whenever the, you know, the moratorium ends. So many different things. And then the weight of, you know, the weight of the pain of knowing that so much of the suffering, you know, that we might call the political suffering is actually being engineered, is being concocted, fabricated, you know, through, you know, through the inability, you know, as James Baldwin said, you know, you know, the reason I think people hold so tightly to their hate is that they realize that if they let go of their hate, they'd have to feel their pain. And we see in the most powerful person in the land and in the world, somebody who's not able to feel his own pain. And he acts it out on the world. He creates divisions, you know, tells, you know, monstrous lies, and has people believing him, and has really created a cult around himself. And I say that, you know, not to create further separation, but as, you know, what I feel is true, that this is all being created for not just for one man's benefit. It's bigger than that, but that's very much at the center of it. And I pray that we will find our way through these next 10 days and through this next period, and that we here collectively can be vehicles of connection, of caring, of compassion, and that if we go into our lives and into the world in that way, with our hearts open, wanting to be healers rather than dividers, I think that can help. You know, that can help us build what Charles Eisenstein called in his book, the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. The more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. Alicia, is that?
Hi, yes, thank you. Julie, what you said is so profound, and was really building on what I was feeling, and gave me the gumption to share. And how, Hugh, you boiled it down to this systematic sort of manipulation from a sociological standpoint of a leader who's creating this chaos and tension and this unsafety. And I personally am feeling very overwhelmed, scattered, and wanting to understand how to have skillful action with feeling I'm failing the BIPOC community by having compassion for white supremacists. I'm really grappling with that right now, sort of beating myself up. And I would love to hear sort of a practice that could benefit some shift, some skillful way of being with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. That's a really, I think, really profound, important question. You know, where I would go with that is what we when we cultivate the heart practices, you know, what we do is we start where it's easiest and more natural, and then we go out to where it's more difficult. Just as, you know, when we go to the gym, we don't begin with 300-pound weights. You know, we start, you know, we build the muscle, and we build the muscles of awareness and the muscles of compassion and loving kindness in the same way that, you know, I wouldn't feel the need or I wouldn't feel the need or the obligation in any way to begin to go immediately to the place of compassion if that's not where, you know, if that's not where you can easily or readily go. You know, what feels more natural, you know, from what you shared, Alicia, is, you know, to really open your heart in compassion for those who are really, you know, the victims and the suffering at the hands of, you know, those who are in these obvious ways are creating harm. And I perhaps would focus attention there, you know, on the Black, Indigenous, people of color community, and others who are really in pain and really suffering, and then our practice can reach out as our hearts open. You know, then we can go out to include those who maybe it's much more difficult for us to open to. You know, and it's a practice, it's a journey. It's not about, you know, I should be feeling this or I should be doing this. It really is, these heart practices more than anything are an art. You know, they're finding our own way, you know, to where our heart can be open and can open as fully as possible. You know, the Dalai Lama practices compassion every day for, you know, the Chinese authorities who've done such terrible harm. But, you know, that's a fruit of, you know, decades and decades of practice. You know, I mean, it's not, you know, one doesn't necessarily begin with, you know, the elephant in the room, as it were, and kind of, oh, let me go there. And, you know, maybe for some people that can happen. So that's just a suggestion, you know. Maybe others have thoughts as well, but thank you. That I think both Julie and Alicia, both of those are really important, you know, sharing contributions. Thank you. Yeah, maybe might be good to go into a final meditation, and we can have this be a heart practice, because, as I said, I do think that the practices of the heart in these times may be what more than almost anything else can allow us to hold, you know, what Zorba the Greek called the full catastrophe, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. So invite you to again come into a comfortable, relaxed posture. Maybe take a few deeper breaths. Letting yourself settle again. Inviting a smile if that's helpful for you. Perhaps remembering, reflecting on some things you feel grateful for. Seeing how that can be a way of stepping out of reactivity, stepping out of being caught up, swept up in difficult emotions and mind states, just to come back to to what we have, what we can be thankful for, if that's available. It's not always available, but if it is. And opening to what's present for you, making space for what's here right now. Opening to what's present in the heart, any pain, any suffering you might be holding right now. See if you can make space for it, hold it. You could put your hand on your heart, on your belly, just caring about this suffering, this pain. And as you breathe in, you might breathe in a wish of compassion for yourself. Could be a phrase, may I be safe, free from harm. May I be free from suffering. May I be peaceful. May I be peaceful. Holding your experience, your own experience right now with kindness, with compassion, with care. Breathing in a wish, an intention of compassion, kindness to yourself. And as you breathe out, you might breathe out compassion to someone, an individual or groups of people who you experience as suffering, who are in pain, who are hurting. Just let the breath breathe out compassion, kindness, care to this person or this group, these people. Wherever your heart takes you right now. Breathing in a wish for yourself. And breathing out compassion and kindness out into the world. Feel this in-breath and out-breath in all of us together. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in kindness, care for ourselves. Breathing out compassion, care, kindness for another or others. feeling whatever, whatever pain, excuse me, whatever pain, whatever hurt, suffering we might be experiencing now. Feeling that held in self-compassion, compassion for ourselves. And breathing out compassion. Compassion to perhaps to everyone else who's here, so that they feel our care. And we feel theirs. We feel each other's care, kindness, compassion. May I be happy, safe, peaceful. May you, may they be safe, cared for. May they be held in loving kindness. May they be peaceful. Breathing in and breathing out. This cycle of life, breathing in kindness, breathing out kindness. Sharing Naomi Shihab Nye, the Palestinian American poet's poem, Kindness. Before you know what kindness is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go, so you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to mail letters and purchase bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is I you have been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere like a shadow or a friend. So letting your wishes of kindness go out into the world. To all who are suffering. Including, if it's possible for you, those who are causing harm. You know, it's said that hurt people hurt people. You know, and that our hatred is our unprocessed pain, our pain that we haven't been able to or found a way to open to. Perhaps the wish that those who are causing harm may see the harm and the pain they're causing and may find a way to step back, see things more clearly, and begin a process of transforming their own hearts, which is a possibility that we all have. May they awaken to their true nature. And once our hearts open, then it becomes impossible to cause harm, or gradually becomes more difficult, because that's not where the mind goes. It doesn't go to hatred and blame. Once the heart opens and we see our connection with others, that we're not separate from others, then it becomes harder and harder to cause pain. May we move towards healing, towards seeing each other's inner goodness. May we find a way out of our current turmoil and pain and suffering. To a world rooted in kindness and compassion. Thank you, everyone, for your kind attention and practice today. I hope that this has helped. Just to be together in community and to practice together has been helpful. I'll just share a couple of things. Maybe the only thing I have immediately is just a reminder, you know, if you're new to this community, there's no cost for the class, but you're invited, if you're able to provide a donation, give a donation, helps to, in this case, helps me to continue teaching. It's how the practice is. The teachings have come down through 2,500 years. And so we keep this tradition of generosity or dana going. Pat will put the link in, has put the link in the chat box. And Cassie, if you'd like to share any announcements.